Much, and again, thank you for the invitation. I was saying to Tommy when I came in that I was quite surprised to see so many people turning up at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday evening for a debate, because I've been involved in politics for 40 years, and I can tell you it's rare. It's only in the past 2 or 3 years I've seen that sort of number, particularly young people, coming to things like this. So that's important. It's also the inevitable. As Tommy and Andy said, it's Amanda said. Sorry about that, Amanda. It's nothing is inevitable. Impossible? No, it's not impossible either. And that's where this debate now is. That's something we wouldn't have had this debate. This debate would not have been possible 10 years ago. There would have been no interest. No one would have. Even Sinn Féin would have told you privately 10 years ago. Or did tell me privately 10 years ago. They did not expect a united Ireland anytime soon. You had to speak the language. You had to walk the walk, do the talk, convince people that the struggle went on in one form or another. But deep down, they knew that the likelihood of a united Ireland in the lifetimes of that generation was unlikely. I think one of the most interesting things in I think it was Paddy Keelty's programme quite recently, when he was talking about his life and his father and growing up during the Troubles, when Arlene Foster was asked what she would do in the event of a united Ireland. There was a time a few years ago, any unionist leader, any unionist asked that question, they'd go, bugger off, this isn't going to be united Ireland. We don't need to answer the question. Why are you asking the question? The fact that she said, I would move, suggested A, that she knows the debate is happening, and B, that any final result could be much closer and a much more difficult argument than she expects. I mean, I always get asked whether it'll happen in my lifetime. And I always used to say no. But since I've got older and now live in a diet which is top heavy on Ulster fries, Turkish delight and Pimm's, all my certainties come with quite a few caveats now. So I will say, as I would have dismissed the possibility 10 years ago, I do not dismiss the possibility now, although I still think it's unlikely. I think there are a number of things in play here, not just Brexit. It's been touched upon, the demographics in Northern Ireland. 30, 40 years ago, the gap between those who were perceived to be nationalists and those who were perceived to be union, that was a huge gap, 30-40% between them. And for unionists, it was that it's unassailable. Our position cannot be challenged. Our majority is strong and stable, will never diminish. And for nationalists, there's probably that sense of, nothing's changing. If it is going to change, it's going to be very, very slow. All of that has changed because it isn't simply the demographics have changed. The key in all of this, and I'm a nerd when it comes to these things. I'm a number nerd. I'm an election nerd. And if you go back to the last big moment, and there are many moments when unionists get itself panicked, but if you go back to the last big moment, was the 1985 Anglo-Irish Agreement. You look at the figures then, the 1982 Assembly, which many of you have probably forgotten about, the 1982 Assembly, 78 members, 49 of whom were full-blown designated unionists, 29 who weren't, but of those 29, I think 7 or 8 were Alliance. That was a time when Alliance would have been perceived as unambiguously pro-union, a middle-class pro-union party. So you look at those figures, where about 55 probably of that 78 bunch of Assembly members were unionist. Look at the Westminster. 15 of the 17 Westminster seats were held by unionists. Look at it now. Come forward to the 2017 Assembly election. Unionists lost its majority for the first time ever. You now have 40 unionists and 50 non-unionists, in other words, people who don't use the title unionist in their description or election literature at all. Crucially though, in the last 5 elections, whether it's the assembly elections, council elections or general election, in those last 5 elections, unionists, well, I'm going to define unionists here as people who use, on their election literature, say, I am pro-union, I believe in the union, or belong to either the DUP or the UUP or the PUP or the Conservative, whatever it is. Of those who clearly and unambiguously brand themselves as unionists, in the past 5 elections, they have not gained a majority. That's important. Unionists need to look at figures like that, because it's that sort of evidence. When people say, what fuels a debate? Not just sometimes the big stuff that fuels it. That attracts the media sometimes. But it's what Sherlock Holmes always used to say, that there's nothing more important than I always have to do. Amanda knows this. I always have to do Sherlock Holmes quote. But there is nothing more important in life than the observation of trifles. It's those little things that don't get the headlines, that nobody really latches onto. But a few years later when you look back, you sort of go, oh, so it was that long ago that unionists weren't guaranteed an unassailable majority. And it was only then that unionists lost their majority for the first time ever. So yeah, all of those come into play in terms of this debate. I think there are a number of things as well that come into play. You have the toxicity of the relationship between unionism and nationalism, which is, and as I've been observing this, I think the first piece I wrote was about, I think about 1977, 1978 piece, and I just left Queen's. It was actually the leadership of the Ulster Unionist Party who would replace Harry West, who's got John Taylor or Jim Mullis. That was the first piece I had ever done. And I've monitored everything in the past 40 years since then. My own gut instinct, and it's a pessimistic instinct, but it is mine, is that Northern Ireland is in real terms probably more polarised now than it has been ever. Just remove the violence from that equation, but just say in terms of relations, how we get on, social integration, societal integration, educational integration, housing integration, just the normal interaction between people. We remain, some people say, well, there hasn't been much change. That's important because when things haven't changed in society, when things don't appear to have made any progress, that's when people who are offering alternatives, that's again, we fuel the argument for them, because they think, well, this hasn't worked. And that's the problem. The Good Friday Agreement, which I supported, had no difficulty supporting, the reality is the Good Friday Agreement really hasn't changed Northern Ireland society all that much.